They went to India too, but Egypt was the first one. Tatos was known as Thoth by the Egyptians. The Greeks called him Hermes. All right? And his initial time travel team consisted of, listen to the names, Geb, Isis, Osiris, and Horus. If you know your Egyptology, those are Egyptian gods. They were actually time travelers, what we call chrononauts. Okay, so let's see Michelle, who will be contacting a time traveler in the 36th century and her future life.
But you said you could also take people into their future. You can take Michelle into her future?
Michelle can go into the future and she can actually access people from our future. We call these time travelers.
That'd be interesting to see.
Right. Michelle, I want you to focus in on communicating, establishing, recreating the communication with the time traveler that you had discussed before. Can you focus in on this time traveler? Can you focus in on what century he is from?
I can't get the second number.
Right, so it looks like it's the 36th century?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And what does he, have you had much contact with him over the years?
Yes,
And how do you meet with him?
in my dreams.
All right. And has he given you any information about yourself or about the plan itself that you can share from this man from the future?
The consciousness level of the people of Mother Earth is raising.
Okay.
There are some people who will fight it, but they're meant to be there
Right.
to create a balance.
Okay. Now, she's describing this 36th century time traveler who is helping her in her own spiritual path, which is what they do, and I talk about this in my Time Travelers from Our Future book. And in her case, you can also go into a future life too. If you'd like, I can quickly go into the 36th.
You have 30 seconds before we have to take a commercial to do that.
No pressure. The 36th century lifetime. I'd like you to orient to that. And can you focus on what kind of work you're doing at this time now?
Spiritual psychologist.
And what is your purpose? What is your role? What do you do?
We help the people of Earth get used to living on other planets. They're upset.
So you're helping them both spiritually and psychologically adjust to living in a new planet.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what these time travelers are. People have asked me about extraterrestrials on this planet. Yes, we will have extraterrestrials living on this planet openly without the men in black taking them out one at a time. That will be several hundred years in the future. By the year 3050, by the 31st century, Tatos forms his first time traveler teams, and this is what a time traveler team eventually looks like. You have your classic gray alien, your Zeta Reticuli, 3 to 4 feet, no earlobes, no hair, and some of them are what they call little blues or little whites. Most of them are gray. The closer you get to this person, the more you realize that it's not exactly your next door neighbor. And they are, like I say, more of the laboratory technician types. They are superior to the grays, but they're inferior to the head of a time travel team, which is a pure human. The pure human is about 6 to 7 feet tall, clean shaven, blue eyes, usually blonde hair, and most of the time they're Caucasians. And people think, well, why is that? Is this racist? No. If you send a different race back in time to a primitive civilization, they kill them. Why? That's who they are. But if you're blonde and blue-eyed, they worship them as gods, like Tatos as Hermes in Egypt. So that's why the Caucasians dominated the time traveler team. So this is an example. Now the last one here, this is a reptilian. There are no good stories about reptilians, okay? Reptilians are actually cannibalistic. They eat their mistakes. And you hear very few stories about reptilian abductions because they literally kill and eat people. And they're always nasty. They're the worst possible example. Now in the future, these reptilians do not have wings like the current extraterrestrials, the reptilians from the current centuries or the past are. Those are called the Draco types from the Draco constellation. So the ones in the future don't have wings, but they're always criminals. They're people who are not sent back as a time traveler team. If they come back in time, it's because they, stole the technology or did something nasty. They're just very evil, nasty entities. So those are the time travelers, the classic time traveler team. Time travelers take their names. Light. Freeze. Okay. Now, People have always wondered, how was the Pyramid of Giza built? All right? All the theories are wrong, okay? You don't have 100,000 men in 20 years built the Pyramid of Giza. These are thousands of tons rocks. There's over 3 million stones in the Pyramid of Giza. It's the only ancient wonder of the world that still exists today. That's how great this thing was built. Was it built 4,500 years ago, as the classic archaeologists and historians say? No. Why do we know that? Because there's water erosion on the Sphinx, which is in the same Giza Plateau, and there wasn't water in the Sahara Desert until 7,000 BC, so it has to be at least 10,000 years old. Okay, this is an anti-gravity flying craft. This is a time traveler technology. This anti-gravity flying craft is a triangular-shaped craft that runs about 9 feet long. It has anti-gravity generators, and being anti-gravity, it lifts up these humongously heavy stones and places them in proper perspective, and that's how the Pyramid of Giza was built, as well as Stonehenge, as well as all these megaliths around Europe, and around the world, too. You know, you have South America, you have Easter Island, you have all these places where there are what we call megaliths. So the anti-gravity flying crafts, can you fast forward, keep going again for a second? Now this is the top part of the craft. If you're looking down at it, you've got these lights so they can work at night. You've got this very interesting triangular-shaped insignia. Why is this triangular-shaped insignia significant? Whenever you see a triangular insignia, it symbolizes the future. That's how you can tell whether a craft or somebody with an emblem on their uniform is from the current century or from the future. They always use triangles. Why? Triangle is a symbol of the universe, you know, pyramids, geometry. All math is based on an equilateral triangle, right? And sometimes there's a circle in the center of it, but you'll always see the triangle-shaped insignia, and that's symbolic of the future. How do time travelers come back in time? Initially, they have what they call enlarging the wormhole that I discussed. There is a problem when you enlarge a wormhole. Now, you have to understand what this is. You've heard of the concept of black holes and white holes and things like that. This is all quantum physics and astrophysics. Wormholes are submicroscopic. They're really small, so that doesn't help you. But in the future, 1,000 years from now, the scientists of the future will be able to enlarge these wormholes, and even Stephen Hawking agrees that theoretically that is possible, you know, with future advanced technology. And Kip Thorne, of course, agrees with that too. So if you do that, the problem is that you can enlarge this wormhole to a humongous size. You can get a craft in there with a crew of chrononauts, and you can go back in time. You can also go forward in time. The problem is every time you do that, you cause a disturbance in the universe. You cause a tear in the fabric of space-time. That's why you have unusual weather circumstances around the world. Things like tsunamis and you know, all kinds of earthquakes, etc., that are far beyond the normal range. You have disturbances due to the tears in the fabric of space-time. Teleportation cases, like I mentioned about the Mexico case, the Philippines to Mexico, what happens is when you have a tear in the fabric of space-time, you create a void that's invisible, and if somebody's walking along, they can be zipped along 1,000 miles away. The teleportation is caused by, most teleportation cases, is caused by tears in the fabric of space-time. So that is a problem. It takes about 300 years for the future scientists to actually develop teleportation as a form of time travel. But in the beginning, they use what's called a wormhole linear accelerator, which is a very advanced device to enlarge these wormholes so that a craft with a crew can go in there. Another advanced technology from the time travel era, that's 1,000 to 3,000 years in the future, is what's called a morphogenic cell regulator, which is, it allows you to alter the physical appearance and even the DNA. So a time traveler, if he's caught by somebody or interrogated, somebody says, you know, who are you? He can change his DNA and his appearance so that they won't know who he is. Time travelers are not supposed to make themselves known. There's a lot of reasons for that, mostly because governments would kill them, okay? Governments don't like time travelers and ETs. They're a little paranoid. The teleporting device is the device that's going to be used by the 35th century. Teleportation will be used as a mode of time travel, and teleportation eliminates the need or the side effect of tears in the fabric of space-time. So by the 35th century, it's a lot easier, and teleportation is instant. They have this little belt line, looks like a little camera on their belt. They push their little buttons, and they can zip back in time or forward in time by any place they want, and that's called the teleporter. Now, as far as healing is concerned, you know, since we're healers here or interested in it, they're going to have a device that's like a little pen flashlight, and this little device emits a light beam that if you are, let's say somebody clinically is killed, they die of a heart attack, or they just die for whatever reason, they get shot and whatever it is. If the time traveler catches that person within 24 hours of physical death, they can revive them by using this little pen flashlight. So this is a brilliant technology. It's part of what I call quantum healing. We call this the intergalactic line healer. So this is an example of, it's hard to imagine this. People think of like, can you possibly imagine with all the advances in science today? Look at your cell phones and computers just in the last 5 years, right? Try to imagine what's going to be around in 1,000 years, or how about 1,500 years, okay? It's impossible. You can use your imagination all you want. These devices are brilliant. Now, as far as a few other technologies, here's some of my favorite examples. This is the 35th century. In my Time Travels from Our Future book, I give a detailed description of the 35th century. Why is that important? Because the 35th century is the ultimate century, in my humble opinion, for technological and spiritual advancement. It's just a brilliant century. But here's some of the devices. There's something called an anti-gravity, or they developed what they call anti-gravity amusement parks. Now, in the future, people like to go to amusement parks to relax, but this one is several thousand feet above the earth, and using anti-gravity technology, it floats above the earth. So people get to this amusement park, and there's a force field around, so you can't fall off the edge. Now, what do they do at the amusement park? They don't have merry-go-rounds and Ferris wheels. No, what they do is, in the amusement park, they go back in time. They visit the Renaissance for the afternoon, or whatever. This is anti-gravity. Now, because of Tatos, the man who developed time travel, they honor him by calling it the land of Tatos. That's the name of the amusement park, okay? Another device which is really fun is called the Alpha Syncolarium. Alpha Syncolarium looks like a microwave device, and, the Alpha Syncolarium is looks like a massage table, inclined, and they send light beams through the body, and they play some sound music in the background, but mostly these light beams are directed so that the DHEA production of the body is increased to such a level that the average life expectancy of a 35th century citizen is between 500 and 900 years. Think about it, 500 and 900 years. And we're talking vibrant life. We're not talking about somebody being wheeled around, right? So the Alpha Syncolarium is a brilliant device. By the way, even today, when we're doing a slowing down the aging process exercise during the afternoon session, one of the early exercises, and to do slowing down the aging process, and I describe this in my book called the Look Younger, Live Longer, which is actually published in India, called Reverse Aging, if you've seen the book by one of your local presses. What you're doing is I'm still using hypnosis, and meditation is the same thing, to stimulate the body's production of DHEA. It's a sex hormone. It's eventually either testosterone in the man or estrogen in the woman. And the intermediary phase known as DHEA, which is produced by the adrenal glands and the gonads, will actually stimulate the production of T lymphocytes, which fights viral diseases like cancer and AIDS and anything viral. And it stimulates the immune system, which is important because the reason why you age is because your immune system breaks down. That's the only reason why you age. If it wasn't for that, you'd be immortal. Think of a single-celled organism. When you were in high school biology, you studied about parameciums and all these little single-celled things. Bacteria are single-celled. If you don't disturb their environment, a single-celled organism will live forever. It'll never die unless you do something to their environment or step on them, because they only have one cell. So slowing down the aging process is a nice advent. Also, this is my favorite too. I call this the Mind Witch machine. This looks like a microwave, and what you do is you think about, let's say you want to have a chicken sandwich, okay? So you think, I want a chicken sandwich. You focus yourself on the Mind Witch machine, and it creates artificially the proverbial chicken sandwich. It's all the nutrition of a chicken sandwich, except you don't gain weight, you can eat as much as you want, and your thoughts create the food, okay? Advanced technology. There's also an information pill. You get up in the morning, you take this little pill, take a glass of water, and all the news that's fit to print, everything that's around is now part of your awareness now. You are aware of everything going on. You don't have to read anything. It's fun. You like that, huh? Okay. There's also what they call a holographic relaxation device. It looks like the old Star Trek holodeck. So if you want to relax and chill out, you can create an environment that you find peaceful, or be wherever you want to be, another part of the world or the universe, and enjoy yourself. You could also take objects and shrink them into very miniature sizes for storage, and then you can enlarge them back again by using various devices. Everybody does what they want to do professionally in the future, and there's no psychosis, there's no poverty. The 35th century is brilliant. And even before that, too, is very nice, too. But by the time you get to the 35th century, the world looks like a nirvana. Very, very interesting. You see, today, people tend to be cynical, especially the media and scientists. They look upon, they say, every day things are getting worse. And, you know, we got terrorism, we got blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we're going to have certain problems throughout the century. Nothing weird, but, you know, the usual junk. But by the time you get to the 22nd century, things begin to change big time. Now, I talk about teleportation, and I mentioned my own example, and there are several other cases. Obviously, my Exploring the Fifth Dimension book and the Time Travels from Our Future book is many cases of teleportation. But I want to give you an example. This is from a section from my Past Lives, Future Lives Revealed book, where I give one case of a future life progression of a gentleman who, in his future life, he's going to be a time traveler. It's a very unique case. And he describes the actual experience of teleportation. So I'm going to give you a quote. This is from a gentleman who will describe what it feels like to actually teleport. Okay, the first time I teleported, now I'm quoting him, it felt almost like I was caught in a giant web. Suddenly, the world exploded into countless pieces of glowing threads. They stretched away in all directions, and they intersected everything, including me. I could now perceive that the strange twisting sensation that I was experiencing was correlated with the motion of these threads. And they were in constant motion. I could feel the world. I could see the room around me, superimposed within the pattern of these threads. I was also aware of things beyond the room. In fact, it seemed like I was aware of everything, although not in any detail. It's somewhat difficult to explain. The overall effect was very similar to looking at a hologram, except it was visceral as well as visual. You could see and feel the image, but you could also see and feel the interference pattern. The difference was that the interference pattern was not flat, but extended in all directions. Part of me was totally confused, and another part of me was completely familiar with whatever this was. There was a very odd sense of my consciousness being split. What I mean by that is that the two contradictory thoughts were present in my mind simultaneously. Now, I asked him how long these effects lasted. He said, they disappeared almost immediately upon my arrival at both locations. What he was also saying is that when you teleport, you have these really weird, and believe me, I've gone through teleportation. It's weird in the beginning, but when you do it several times, you get used to it, and the feelings are no longer as unique, and it's like anything else. Some people in their initial experiences with hypnosis may feel very heavy feelings. Their hands feel numb, or they feel like pressure on the back of their neck or the top of their head, the crown chakra, and it's weird for them. But eventually, they get used to it, and those feelings usually disappear because they're now conditioned. They're more experienced receiver. Okay, all right, very good. Okay, what I'd like to do now is spend a few moments doing some questions, taking some questions of what we covered, and then we're going to have a break, and then if the products can be set up in the back of the room, we'll have a little break for that before we go into the after break prior to lunch session. Yes, can we have the microphone here, please?
It's really very difficult to believe all this, okay? Now, we'd like to know what is the research that has gone into all this?
What's the research?
What's the research? Like, how did you get the picture of that plane,
Okay.
the anti-gravity plane?
The research is done by patients describing these things to me in detail.
Okay.
Now, interesting, I'm a scientist. When I first heard about these time traveler experiences, I had a problem too. So let me give you a scientific principle. It's called Whatley's Law of Evidence. This is what it means. If people from all over the world who do not have communication with each other say the same thing, it must be true. That's what science says.
Okay.
When I did my research, before I published my book, my first book on time travels came out in 1997. This research was done in the 80s.
Okay.
People from all over the world, including India, Australia, Japan, United States, Canada, South America, okay?
Okay.
They all reported time travelers, they all reported the same MO, and at least 2 continents reported the anti-gravity flying craft. I didn't publish it, nobody else has written on this, I can tell you right now.
Okay.
Whatley's Law of Evidence.
Okay.
That's the research.
Okay.
Okay.
Then one more thing. Now, which is the country which is going to do all this? Is it going to be USA? Is it going to be India? Is it going to be China?
Actually, none. Let me show you. Let me
Okay.
give you an example. All right, let me break down the future of politics, okay?
Okay.
This is something that, this is not necessarily going to interfere with anybody's government mentality, but let me show you what happens. By the 23rd century, let's fast forward about 200 years. By the 23rd century, you're going to have 2 major governments on this planet. All of it, by the way, is democracy, so you don't have to worry about, other problems. One is called the Western Federation of Nations, which consists of the North America, South America, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Then you have the Eastern Alliance, which consists of Russia, China, India, Japan, Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. Now that goes on for a few hundred years, and by the end of the 24th century, you have a one world government called the League of One, again democratic, and that goes for another, about 250 years, and then by the 28th century, you have the Atlantic and Pacific Federation set up, which are equivalent to the Western Federation, the Eastern Alliance, in the country constituents. And again, they're all democratic. So it's not like America versus so-and-so. They refer to these group alliances.
Okay.
And this becomes, it's very peaceful because there are no wars. You don't have to worry about nuclear wars or anything like that. So that's the future of the government mentality.
Okay. And then, see, we have not yet gone to the moon also. Somehow 1500 years seems very short.
What do you mean we haven't gone to the moon?
There are no
colonies,
there are no colonies on the moon.
Oh, no colonies. Well, we don't know that. There are theories that says there are. We just haven't heard about them. But we have had many trips to the moon. At least 5 in America, and Russia went there, and
So that means 1500 is going to be the progress of human civilization is going to be tremendous then.
It is tremendous.
Okay.
This is interesting. It's all a matter of perspective. If you think going back in time with a time travel machine kind of mentality, or if you think healing people, reviving the dead with the intergalactic line healer, isn't that fun? But let me tell you something. Use a little different perspective. Go back about, 1,000 years ago. What was India like 1,000 years ago? What was the world like 1,000 years ago? They were worried about the world ending by the year 1000 because of the New Testament, in the West. And what do we have today compared to 1,000 years ago? We've got computers, satellite dishes, we got cricket games, we got tennis, we got people with good backhands, We got everything going on that we didn't have. So look at 1,000 years ago to today, people would think you were crazy if you mentioned this technology. They would have burned you at the stake, right?
Yeah. So it's something like, our ancient Indian rishis were doing time travel, so that those times are going to come back. Something like that?
I'm having a hard time understanding. Slow down.
Okay. No, time travel, you are saying, is documented by all major civilizations of the world. So it's going to come back.
The evidence of time travel has been documented by the archaeological findings, okay?
Okay.
They found, for example, footprints of people with soles of shoes that go back 250 million years ago. There's a book that was written, are you familiar with the book Cremo and Thompson's Forbidden Archaeology? Have you ever heard of that book? It's called Forbidden Archaeology. It's a great book. It's about 900 pages. It gives you all the things that scientists don't want to talk about.
Okay.
Like, for example, the most significant thing is there's in South Africa, they have this iron ore called limonite. Okay. It looks like peanut brittle, the way it's formed naturally.
Okay.
When scientists try to date an object, you can only carbon date 50,000 years ago. But the deeper you are in the earth, the older the object is, and they can date that, okay?
Okay.
So they found a perfectly round sphere of limonite, several hundred of them in South Africa.
Okay.
And they had these concentric like equators, like little grooves.
Okay.
Very hard object. It takes like a diamond point to do that.
Okay.
The way it was found in the earth, do you know what the dating of it was? 2.8, not million, billion years ago.
My goodness.
My goodness is right. So the only people that were around, the only thing that was around 2.8 billion years ago was slime and lawyers. I mean, you know, there were no humans around.
Okay.
That's forbidden archaeology. Do you think scientists like to hear about that? No.
Okay.
They don't, because it goes against their paradigms. Just like Egyptology, you don't see books being published that says the Pyramid of Giza must be at least 9,000 years old, and same with the Sphinx. No, they say 2500 BC during the Pharaoh Chephren, which is wrong, okay?
Okay.
So you understand the prejudice is
Right.
people don't like to admit they're wrong, especially academicians.
Correct. Yeah, and then all these, many Hollywood movies show these monsters.
Forget the movies. I'm a consultant to Hollywood. Trust me,
Okay.
they don't follow my recommendation word for word,
Okay,
okay?
okay. So that's...
Forget it.
Forget
Don't judge your life by Hollywood. You know,
Okay.
for example, you see like here's my favorite. In America, we have a lot of lawyer shows, lawyer and cop shows, right? So there was a famous show that just went off the air. It was funny. It was called Boston Legal. I don't know if you ever saw it. Funny show. Really hilarious. A guy gets arrested, right? The next day they have a trial. No, you don't have a trial the next day. It takes like a year, okay? They got to file motions. They got to go through depositions and all kinds of other stuff.
Okay.
Hollywood always fudges everything. Now, my Search for Grace movie was interesting in that they did a pretty good job. It was very accurate. There were some differences, but it was about 70% accurate. But never, ever, ever judge your life by what Hollywood says about anything. Trust me, it's not
Okay.
accurate, okay? But please, I got a couple of questions, okay? Thank you. Yes.
We are on the Earth, and entire exercise happens to be of one planet of a galaxy, Milky Way. Now there are said to be millions of galaxies.
Actually, there are billions of
Billions of
planets
galaxies,
on
okay.
hundreds of millions of galaxies. Each of them have a black hole in the center. People think black holes are evil. Without black holes in the center of the galaxies, there wouldn't be a galaxy.
Yeah.
So if you're looking about the statistics, the late Carl Sagan was a real skeptic about metaphysics and UFOs and ETs and stuff. He hated it. Really hated it. He came up with what's called the greenhouse analysis. In West Virginia, they had this big meeting of astronomers. He was an astronomer. And they took all the number of planets that they think are around. There are billions of them. And even they agree, and these are skeptics, these are not fans of the field, approximately 40 million planets in all the galaxies would have the elements of life as we have today. In other words, you could have human life or something like this on at least 40 million planets in the galaxies, if you add them all up together.
Okay, my question is, the fundamental truth of the gravitational field force on the Earth, similarly, entropy as a universal phenomena, is both likely to dominate the entire universe?
Right, wait, I think you're confusing everyone, including me. Entropy says that you're going to have chaos. Is that what you're talking about? Like the whole universe is going to collapse? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it is said
But it
that
hasn't. It's been around
the
for at
world
least
is
14
going
billion
down
years.
by degradation is what is the entropy which is fundamentally accepted by scientists.
Well, it's accepted by scientists, but they're wrong because we have a universe that's at least 14 billion years old and it shouldn't be around today, okay? It should have been whooshed, okay? What happens is that astrophysics is what you're talking about. Let me show you what they say. Every 40 billion years, you have a Big Bang theory. And then the universe explodes, you have all these dimensions, 10 dimensions, then it shrinks down to 3 dimensions, and then you go through a cycle, and 40 billion years later, it starts all over again. Well, we're 14 billion years into a 40 billion year cycle. So you don't have to worry about human beings. No one's going to be around in 25 billion years anyway. But the universe doesn't really collapse. It goes through a cycle. It doesn't just end.